Hi, my name's Krishma Balaki and welcome to World Bites.
Hello, my name is Fiona Otek.
Hi, I'm Rebecca, reporting for World Bites.
We are here today to ask the public what they think of the banning of the veil in places like France and Belgium.
What do the public really think?
Hello, I'm Krishan Patel. I'm reporting for World Bites here in Dalston.
Hello, I'm Gemma, reporting for World Bites, and today we are in Hackney asking people their opinions on the wearing of the burqa.
Hi, I'm Dan, reporting for World Bites. We're at Wood Green to find out what people think about the Muslim face veil.
Hi, I'm Federica, reporting from World Bites.
I'm Neville Borch, reporting for World Bites.
So what do you think about the recent ban in France? You know, they've banned the veil wearing. What do you think about that?
I think it's terrible. I think it's an infringement on people's rights.
Well, I think it's an absolute disgrace. First off, it's completely self-defeating, and secondly, as a matter of principle, it's totally unjust. The point of a just state is to enable people to lead their lives as they choose, unless they harm other people, and so it's got nothing to do with anyone else. People should be free to do what they want. And one of the great things about Britain is precisely that there isn't the move to do that sort of thing, and there's no way on earth in Britain that would get through Parliament.
So what about, there are two B&B owners that wouldn't allow homosexual partners in their B&B, and they were prosecuted. Isn't that sort of the government getting involved in people's religious beliefs?
Well, in one sense, so remember the point of the government is to make sure that people should be free to lead their lives as they choose unless they're harming other people. But that brings with it a certain commitment, which means that people aren't free to treat people according to their prejudices about the colour of their skin or their sexuality or their religion. So it's a piece of equality legislation based on that just principle.
I think it was right because obviously when I go out on the street and I like to, see people's faces, that I don't like people just hiding away. It makes me feel like unsafe kind of, in a way.
Obviously, they shouldn't be walking around with their face closed and that, man. That's scary.
Right now I'm talking to you as a person. I'm not talking to a piece of a cloth, whatever its color, and black cloth on top of it. And you can see eyes that see you, but you can't see the person you're talking to. So this is completely not acceptable. I mean, if people feel that strongly about it, then their place is not in France, I'm sorry to say.
But what about people's freedom of expression and being themselves?
What do you think of female mutilation? This is also a cultural thing, and it's also unacceptable. It's also for those women, because most of them don't have a choice. We can see what's happening in the suburbs in France. A lot of girls are not allowed to dress the way they want. They have to wear baggy trousers not to show their shapes, quote unquote. So, I mean, where is it going to stop?
There are a lot of Muslim women who wear the veil, wear the burqa, because it's their decision and it's how they interpret the Quran and how they feel their religion should be pursued.
They interpret, as you say, because Muslim leaders, serious ones, say it's not part of the religion. It's nowhere in the religion. I think in the Quran it says women should be dressed modestly. Okay, fine. Nobody's asking them to go around, wearing bikinis in the street. But that's an extreme, and it's not even part of the religion. There are women going to school, to primary schools, to get their kids. And they can't, you don't know who the woman, or it could be a man actually, underneath that garb, and who is coming to pick up the child. There have been cases of exams when people wearing that sort of veil, in fact it wasn't the people who were sitting the exams. It's not acceptable. Why were there 200 a few years ago and why are there 2,000 now? So it's a new thing.
Well, I mean, you could argue that the reason why 200 has become 2,000 is a direct result of maybe people from the Islam, religion feeling persecuted, feeling like they're being victims, and that could be a reason why more people be wearing more veils.
Seeing themselves as victims, so first of all, it's not true because they're very successful people among the Muslim community. There are very successful Muslim people in France as well. Also, a lot of people who are against that niqab or whatever it's called are women from the suburbs who are Muslim themselves. There's a very well-known organization, which is a grassroots organization founded by Muslim women from the suburbs. And they fight all extremism. And of course, who gets the victim of extremism, of religious extremism? Women, not men. Always, the women are downtrodden. And they are dead against it, and they are the first ones who know what they're talking about.
There are certain women who feel empowered by wearing the veil, wearing the burqa. They feel like they had their own identity.
Do you have an identity when nobody can see you, and then you are like a ghost? And a lot of young kids get scared of seeing those black ghosts walking around in the streets. They're not persons anymore, they are dehumanized. And that is what is unacceptable. And so they feel empowered. I don't know, are there statistics to show that they feel empowered? They don't feel empowered, usually they don't even work. They are slaves at home, just there for their husbands and their kids, and that's it, period. Why do you think people in Afghanistan are so pleased that they could start taking their burqas off? And also, you might not know, but a lot of people get run over because they can't see when they're crossing the street and all that sort of thing. I mean, it's just... saying that it's good for them is just it's an excuse, and it's not true. A few of them might say so. Usually the ones who say so are converts. There are women who are born Catholics or whatever, and they convert because they fall in love with the Muslim guys. So that's a different story.
So do you think that it's right for the government to be telling people what to do with their religion? Do you think they should intervene?
I think the government intervenes all the time, otherwise everybody would go go and take things from shops because they like them and so on. The government, when you live in a society, you have rules. So the government intervenes at every step of your life. That's living in a society. If not, you go in the desert and you live in a tent.
Would you like to see more involvement of the government and religion?
No, I mean this is just an extreme form. It's not part of the religion. Religious leaders say it themselves. It's not part of the religion, so it's not interfering in people's religion because it's not part of the religion. Because there have been a lot of debates in France about it, and it's not in the Quran.
Do you not think it's up to society on our own, without influence of government, to get together and try and make our own decisions without having it forced upon us, because then we rely too much on the government?
So why don't you go around half naked with a knife and killing people? It's your own decision. You want to kill people, go on a killing spree. Again, when you live within a society, you have to have a certain number of regulations.
So could you just tell me your overall opinion on the ban on burqas in France and Belgium?
I was surprised to hear that France banned the burqa, especially because it affects so few women in the country. And also, one of France's kind of founding commandments is that liberté, égalité and fraternité, and that's not what I understand to be the meaning of their three kind of tenets of the French state. So I was surprised, and I think that really the issue of the burqa ban is a question of political deflection to appease the far-right critics, rather than an actual statement on the whys and wherefores of wearing the burqa.
What do you think a burqa represents? Some people see it as breaking people off from the rest of society and isolating them. Would you agree with that?
To me, if I see a woman wearing a burqa in the street, to me it represents religious devotion. And personally, I think that it can be isolating. I struggle with the concept that somebody needs to dress a certain way in order to make themselves feel comfortable. And really, the point of wearing a burqa is to deflect male attention. Well, I think that that's the man's problem, not the woman's problem, and I don't think that a woman should have to dress to deal with men's issues. Having said that, every woman should be free to wear what she wants, and banning a piece of clothing is completely ludicrous in my opinion.
You mentioned that it's an item of religion. Do you think that it could be banned in the name of secularism at all?
No, I can't imagine why anybody who's a secularist would dream of banning the burqa, except for when they ban kind of face coverings for really extreme cases, like, if they have to testify in court or they have to go and, I don't know, prove themselves somewhere. But in those cases, there are exceptions to the religious rules on wearing the niqab and the burqa anyway, so it would never be a problem. So no, I can't imagine why anyone would want to enforce. Secularism isn't really about enforcing anything, it's about getting along.
So you acknowledge that some people would see the burqa as a bit of a security risk. To what extent do you believe that?
I don't really think it's a security risk. I think it's hardly a security risk at all. I mean, the only thing is that I'm trying to fathom some kind of situation where you might need to show your face. And it would be for example, going through passport control. And I think that if we get into banning pieces of cloth, then, you know, we're off in like kind of la-la land.
Do you have the same opinions for the banning of the hoodie, and do you see the similarities between that?
The implications aren't nearly as vast because it's not a kind of item of religious iconography. So, and often it's just a hoodie and it's not really a problem. You know, some store managers have a problem. Like, I went into Sainsbury's and I got told to take my hood down, and it just amused me, you know. So it's not really, I don't really see it on the same lines. You know, banning the burqa is a political statement to offset far-right criticism of neutral political parties. That's all it is, and all it does is get people's backs up and end us up with people like us having discussions like these.
So the proposed ban in France and one that's already undertaken in Belgium, what's your general opinion of it?
Well, it puts me in the classic dilemma of the humanist liberal. On the one hand, I believe in people's right to the freedom to express their own views and their own beliefs. On the other hand, I believe very strongly in the need to be respectful of the culture that you're in. And the ban puts me right on the horns of that dilemma. When I have family in the Middle East who are Muslim, and when I'm there, I'm very happy to cover my head. But when they come here, I expect some sort of adjustment to what the local culture is. In France, they had a violent revolution in order to have a secular culture, a democratic, secular, anti-clerical culture, and I absolutely understand why they need to feel the need to keep religion out of public life. Whether the face veil is only a religious symbol, to me, is an open question. But it seems to me that some compromise should be found between covering the head and not covering the face when in a country in which the main means of recognising people is through their face.
Do you think that, although people think it's a religious item, it kind of stops them from integrating into society?
Well, I'm not sure that that's an important issue. I mean, I was brought up by Catholic nuns, you know, and they dress in a pretty, in those days, in the 1950s, they covered up everything except their faces and hands. And I must say I found nuns quite scary when I was little, you know, but they integrated into the culture to the extent that they chose to be integrated into the culture, and I think there's a question of sort of personal choice here.
So do you believe that France reserves the right to tell people what they can and can't wear?
I think so, yes. I think you know, there are limits to the freedom of expression in any culture. Maybe we could argue that in some Western cultures the freedom to expose flesh has gone rather too far. You know, there are a lot of countries, I mean most countries, complete public nudity is illegal, and you know, by the same token, you know, the law is saying that you should cover certain bits up. The law should perhaps also be free to say that you should leave certain bits uncovered. But I think it's important. The argument about there's a strong argument about coercion. A lot of feminists say women should not be coerced into wearing the veil, and they always reply that they've chosen to wear it. I think you can use similar arguments about wearing very, very sexualised clothes, actually, that women, if, for instance, in the sex industry, are coerced into wearing those sort of clothes against their will as well. I mean, I think women should have the right to wear what they want within the limits of what the cultural norms are. You could argue that in France there's quite a lot of racism, and that particular democratic choice was made partly in response to some rather reprehensible racist views. But I think it's highly, highly unlikely that you would ever get arbitrary rules telling people how to dress or not to dress. Although some institutions do that. I mean, we all know schools where, you know, girls have been expelled for wearing nail varnish or wearing jewellery or whatever, you know, and institutions, I suppose, have a kind of right to impose rules of dress as part of their institutional rules, the same as, you know, if you work in a
food industry, you have to cover your hair for hygiene reasons or whatever, you know. There are always going to be regulations about dress.
Do you think the government has a right to control what people wear?
I don't think so, no. Because everybody's free to wear or to do what they like as they feel. The English government, I think, it become more of a dictatorship government. I don't feel the English government is more like a freedom, democratic government, as they explain. But indirectly, they give it to you as a dictatorship.
Do you see the burqa as oppressing women because they're seen as something that has to be covered up so other men can't look at them?
As I said, you know, they have their own religion, they have their own belief, and they should dress as they feel, you know. It's not for people to tell them what they should do or what they should not do, whether they do live in their own country or they live in another country. Because years ago I was married to an Iranian woman. She left Iran to come and live here in England not to wear the burqa. Them days. Then when Khomeini got back you remember? No, I don't think you remember those days. It was in the early '78 when Khomeini used to live in France, and from France they took him back to Iran when they moved the Shah of Iran. You remember? I see. Perhaps, well, I think I'm going back a few years. But this is an interesting conversation, which I think you should point this out. Because when Khomeini got back to Iran, he wanted all the Iranian women to wear the burqa again. And whichever Iranian woman used to live abroad in Europe and wasn't married under an Iranian law, he used to cut their neck off when they used to go back to Iran. This is a non-fact, it's reality. It happened.
It shouldn't really be encouraged, but at the end of the day, I don't think that many Muslim girls do wear full burqas on. I don't, obviously, as a Muslim boy, I actually do find it, I'm not comfortable seeing a girl with just the eyes showing.
Do you think it's a garment that subjugates women? I mean, what do you think of that?
It's free will. At the end of the day, it's free will. They can wear what they want, isn't it? But if you do think it from another point of view, this is not a Muslim country. It's not Saudi Arabia, is it? But how many girls do you see out here right now how many Muslim girls do you see actually wearing a full burqa on? None of them really.
So if your sister went out not wearing the veil and she wore something that is probably Western, would you have a problem with other men looking at her because the veil is supposed to preserve modesty?
Obviously, I don't like no guys looking at my sister because she's my sister. Nobody likes that, obviously. But if my sister was wearing like a short skirt, I wouldn't like that. But she's got enough sense in her brain to know how to dress in it, and she doesn't wear the veil or nothing like that. She's British. She's brought up in the British way, isn't it? But if she wore the veil on, it'd be up to her, innit? I can't tell her what to do.
Can I just ask you what you think about the Muslim face veil?
I think it's a choice for people who are Muslim, and I think that if you want to wear one, you should be able to, it shouldn't be banned, like it's happening in France at the moment, Yeah, I was recently in Paris and I saw a woman on the tube there, and I just felt like you'd feel quite singled out by that law, and it would almost feel a little bit more oppressive. I mean, I think that they think that they are sort of rescuing women by releasing them from this, but I feel like that there's a lot of other problems with like domestic violence and things like that that could be dealt with more than that. I think that that's their choice, and I think you end up singling out one group of people, and I feel like that's a bit racist to do that,
If someone's face were covered, do you find it threatening at all?
The threat, I don't think, is an issue. The threat is purely just what stemmed from, what the media says and things like that. No one's actually ever threatened by the female wearing a veil.
Even though I was a practiced Muslim myself, I didn't actually wear the veil. I used to wear the hijab, not the niqab. But I think people living in Britain, generally, the outcome is very multicultural and everyone's entitled for their own opinion on what they want to do.
So many people have claimed that Muslim women wearing the actual face veil causes fear or anxiety between people.
You know what,
wearing it, how did you feel about that?
I didn't wear the veil, I wore the hijab, but that is your own personal preference, what you want to do. I'll be honest with you, even though I'm not a practiced Muslim now, the Muslims that I met back in years ago, they are genuine, loving, caring, honest people, and they're no fear at all. They wouldn't hurt a fly, and I don't think somebody should be judged on how they look from the outside when you don't know who they are from the inside. Like they say in that saying, don't judge a book by its cover, that you should take that on board.
Well, I think it's up to, everyone should be able to do what they want. It's up to them, so...
It's a kind of a difficult situation because even though I agree with, obviously freedom of expression and etc., you have to put the other public's, do you know what I mean, safety ahead as well. You can't just... I say that because if I was walking down alleyway at night and there was a woman, obviously she probably wouldn't be there at night if she's a Muslim, but yeah, if she had a burqa on, I wouldn't, you know, really be safe. Like, is that a woman? Is that a man? Is that just a
Don't you think
fake
that's the same
person?
with hoodies and like you wouldn't really, you know, them guys that wore their hoodies, like there's guys that would do that without a hoodie or with a hoodie. There's people that would maybe even use the burqa as a, you know, a disguise or whatever. But I don't think that, you know, there's danger either way. It doesn't matter what you do. There's things that are always going to happen. And taking someone's, like if you've been brought up from little doing something and then you just take it away from them and expect them not to do it, like, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that should be able to happen. No.
It shouldn't be able to happen, but at the same time, it shouldn't be controlled either. But at the same time, they have to be understanding with the stigma that's going to come with it if they wish to carry it out. Just like every other religion, like if you're a Christian.
So how comes all of a sudden though? It's like after all these years now, they want all these people to just stop doing that.
But just like the hoodie, there was a stigma behind that, but
they
we carried on. I
didn't
know,
ban
but
it.
we carried on wearing it. Like it's like, but we're used to this. We know what type of discrimination we're gonna get if we walk around, you know, with hoodies on because of. Do you know what I mean? The stereotype. So as long as they're willing to accept, you know, what's going to come with it, just like every other situation arising, then that's they shouldn't be controlled, but definitely not complain about.
So do you know anybody who wears a face veil?
Yeah, I do. I've got a few friends that prefer to wear the burqas and a few friends that don't prefer to wear the burqas, but the ones that don't, their reasons more like sexuality kind of orientated. They believe that it kind of stops you from getting as far as you can if you're seen to shut yourself out or separate yourself from the type of environment you want to work in, etc.
I just think if you want to wear it, then you wear it. If you don't, you don't. Murderers come in hats, they come in suits, they come in veils, they come in anything. So you can't stop someone's, you know, and they do all these terrorist alerts so they can bring these rules out. It's not worth it.
So if their terrorist regimes are up to scratch, then a burqa shouldn't really matter. They should already have the intelligence to know who to look for and who not to.
Do you think that there's a difference between people wearing a hoodie and people wearing a burqa?
Same difference. It's like hoodies are part of fashion. It's what all the young kids are wearing nowadays. Burqa's part of religion. It's accustomed to their faith. It's how they feel free in expressing themselves. So leave them be.
In general, I don't really feel that it will achieve what the lawmakers are setting out to achieve. Because if they want to achieve a society where they have this practice that they view as discriminatory against women and they want it to stop, I think banning the veil will not stop it. It will only enforce people's prejudices about it. And also the idea of women who are veiled being arrested in the streets and dragged away to be fined or whatever, it's not really going to help the situation at all.
Do you think that people really understand what wearing the face veil is about?
No, they don't understand, you know. Some people don't, because you get some people that do moan. Why are they walking around with just, you know, only can see their eyes and whatever, but they don't know about their culture. I think so anyway. Like I said, I was supposed to wear one, but you know me, I don't wear one. No, I'm English, that's it. But I don't think it should be banned.
It's their personal choice, and if they want to wear it, good for them. I find it prejudice against the Muslim women wearing a veil. And it's like they're sectioning them like a minority, and it's almost like bullying them. I find it wrong, and they shouldn't have the right to dictate and tell them what they shouldn't wear.
Well, I think if people want to wear it, that's up to them, isn't it? Sort of, you know, women in other cultures are oppressed in different ways. You know, women are expected to maybe wear makeup or make themselves look beautiful for men or whatever it might be. It's just a different version of the same thing. So to pick on the veil, I think is wrong. I think, as I say, it might be an oppression for women, but, you know, so are other religions as well.
France and Belgium have actually introduced legislation that bans it within public spaces. Would you agree with this legislation, or would you be against it?
No, I think that's wrong. I think it's stupid. I think it avoids the issue, really, which is about the more you point out and focus on people's differences and say that they can't do this, that they can't do that, you're going to actually kind of alienate people even more. And if people want to wear it, that's up to them. And, you know, you could argue, well, people shouldn't wear crash helmets in public, or people shouldn't wear hoodies in public, you know, like they say, and it's just stupid.
Some people would argue that burqa is a security threat. I mean, they frame the argument in that context.
No, I don't, because I think you can have certain kind of provisions where you can say, like, okay, you know, if you're going into a bank and you have to prove your ID, you have to take the veil off, and therefore, you obviously, if you want to be in a private room with a woman, you take your veil off. Or in the same way as at airports, you can go to a private room. So there's ways around it, but the fact of wearing a veil in public in itself is not a security issue, I don't think.
One, I understand religiously why they do it. It's supposed to encourage modesty, but from a security standpoint, it's a walking nightmare, because if you don't know what the person looks like underneath it, how can you properly police an area? I've dealt with security for over 20 years, and I've come across the argument of, oh, it's my religion, and I have to do this. So there's ways of getting around that. If, like in the airport, if a woman comes in with a full burqa, you have to get another woman to look at her. Yeah. But if she accepts, if not, then it's up to the airline, or over how they're traveling, to say yes, they're willing to let her go, or no. But from a security standpoint, no. It has to go. Because then it's a way of hiding. That's where a lot of the people that do things they're not supposed, that criminals they'll put on a burqa. That's how I think it was the shoe bomber tried to get away. He used a burqa, and he knew the loophole of, well, males can't tell a woman to remove it, and there was no woman available to look at her, so they let him go.
And what about other things like a hoodie? Is that a security threat as well? For example, a hoodie or sunglasses or some other form?
Well, in the U.S. and other countries, when you're coming into certain places, you have to remove the hoodie. That's like if you go into a bank in the U.S. Yeah. If you're wearing a hoodie, first thing they'll tell you is please take the hoodie off, because they want to be able to see your head. Okay. And if you're wearing sunglasses and it's a day like this where it's overcast, automatically they'll tell you please remove the sunglasses. Even going through an airport, they'll tell you to take them off. If they're not prescription, even if they're prescription, they'll ask you to remove them for a moment so they can see your face.
I mean, something could be completely harmless, and it can be seen as a threat, you know, only because of how they want to paint it out to be.
So, when you say you're an atheist, you don't believe in God at all?
Nah,
no.
I'm very anti-religious, in fact. I mean, I have respect for religion, but I don't believe everything or follow anything myself.
Right. And do you think the burqa should be banned?
I think it should be banned, because I think it's only an optional thing. I mean, personally, I would ban it. I mean, I think it's unfair for women to wear the veil while the husbands walk around with their faces clear. I think it's unfair. I think it's a very sexist garment of clothing myself.
Do you think they should be arrested and imprisoned, or would it just be a fine?
I think that since most women, mostly Muslim women who wear the veil, I think they shouldn't be arrested, but I think they should be told to take it off, or at least fined, if anything. I think prison might be a bit too extreme.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm a bit cynical, but I think we're being taught in this country to be quite phobic about Islamic people and Muslims in general, and I don't feel personally threatened by women who want to express their religion through their clothing, and I don't look at a person like that and think automatically that that's a person who puts me as an individual at risk. I think that's a really ridiculous assumption.
Some people argue that it's a sign of women's oppression wearing the burqa.
Well, I guess we have to leave that up to the women who are wearing it to decide, shouldn't we?
So you don't think women are forced to wear it, you think they choose to wear it?
Well, I know many Muslim women, and their opinion, when I ask them that question, is that that's their choice and it's their form of religious expression, so who am I to make a different opinion and enforce that on them?
So you don't think religion's a problem for integration?
I think religion's a problem in many respects, in many areas of society, but there should be a discourse and there should be a conversation, and the only way that we're going to resolve those problems is through talking about it, not through phobia, not through intimidation, and not through bullying people who are quite confident in their choices and the beliefs that they have in their life.
The people who blew up on the July bombings, none of them were wearing burqas. They were just in normal jackets, normal backpacks, so I don't think there's any particular threat from someone wearing a particular outfit.
I think that we live in a country where actually there is freedom of expression, and so I think if women choose to wear the face veil, then there shouldn't be anything against it.
Some people would argue that it's a symbol of female oppression within the Muslim world. What would you state about that?
Not at all. I mean, I think if you're talking specifically about the Muslim world, actually, I think if anything, it's a symbol of freedom, because we live in the West. Actually, people judge you by the way that you look, and I think what people forget to realise is that a piece of cloth does not judge what's inside your brain. So, you know, you have to be allowed to be free to express yourself. And also, if we look at the way that people dress in the summer, you get real extremes, don't you? From very little to complete covering. So it's, in some ways, it's a choice for women. Women are allowed to wear it if they want to, or if they don't want to, then they don't have to wear it.
But don't you think there are certain women who are forced to wear it? Do you think that's the case?
Personally, not at all. And I would say that really it's up to women to choose whether they want to wear it or not. I mean, for example, I choose not to wear it, you know, and I'm allowed within my religion to make a decision about how I dress. Just actually in the same way that men are allowed to make decisions about how they dress.
Some people argue in favor of banning it on security grounds. They'd argue that it's a security threat. What would your opinion on that be?
I think that's a little bit of paranoia. I mean, I'm not being funny, but have a look at the people who actually committed some of these atrocities. You know, they look less Muslim than some people who I would call Muslim.
And what do you think is needed to change the perception?
Just by having a conversation, just by speaking to people, the fear goes away. You know, I'm dressed like this, yeah. How are you going to judge me because of the way that I'm dressed? Do you know that I'm an architect? Do you know that I lead procurements of £300 million projects? No, because people will judge me. And so if I walk into a workplace, the first thing that they will think, okay, she's the admin officer, but actually I'm a director of a council in London.
And do you think that still happens in this day and age? I mean, in London itself, that people just automatically judge a Muslim woman, for example, on what she's wearing?
I think it's much wider than that. I think that we judge people full stop. So, yes, Muslim women get judged, but so do Muslim men, so do Jewish men and Jewish women and Christians and nuns and people just walking down the street.
But have you ever been in a situation yourself where you felt discriminated against or judged just because of the way you dress?
Yes, but ironically, if I'm really honest with you, the biggest level of discrimination I've ever suffered was when I was in Scotland by a few people, and that was for being English.
People should feel free to wear what they want, you know. At the end of the day, it's not the government's business to tell people what to wear.
Well, I don't think it should be banned, you know. Everyone's got their own right to whatever they want to wear, you know. This country's a free country, and you shouldn't ban anything what they want to wear. That's part of their religion. You know, from my first experience of being out in Afghanistan, I saw a lot of people wearing burqas. It doesn't make them a bad person. You can't just judge people like that. If you have to ban the burqa, then you have to ban like a pair of jeans or a hat or anything, you know. I can't see the point in someone being afraid of someone just because they got their eyes covered, you know, or because they're a certain religion. You could be afraid of anyone, you know, who's wearing, you know, just a pair of glasses or something like that. It's no different. We live in a day and age now where we're under constant security, you know, and constant looking at CCTV cameras and things like that. And, you know, why can't we just go about our lives, you know, meet up with different people who we want to meet up with, not be sort of like oppressed all the time by certain people. You can't go with them because they're Muslim, you can't go with them because they're Japanese, because you can't go with them because they're Thai. It's rubbish.